All right. So, welcome everyone to another episode of the Omar Pinto Coaching Podcast. And today we have Milena Regos joining us on the show. Hi, I'm Milena. I am a type A overachiever turned mindful entrepreneur. I designed a life I love with a business to support it. Now I can show you how to do the same. Here's why I believe that now is the best time to unlearn old ways and learn a new way of living, working and being so you can take back your time, well being, and optimal performance. Unhustle is a revolutionary movement changing the way we live and work. We put human before hustle. It's a counterintuitive but scientifically proven approach that by working less, you can get more done and live better. Welcome to the show, Milena. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Omar. I'm super excited to be here.
I am super excited to ask you a million questions because I come from the Gary V school of grinding and hustling and working hard. It didn't just come from Gary V. It came from my father. It came from me. That's how I grew up. It was like you have to work hard. You have to be the first one in. You have to be the last one out. You got to go the extra mile. You got to, whatever, put the company first, that kind of a thing. And so there was this. That's how I was raised to believe that as a human being, I would come second in the equation when it came to productivity, earning a living, and raising a family. Sound familiar, Melina?
Yep, you and everybody else that I speak with about the same. The name Gary Vee comes up, and then everything else that comes with it: society's norms, how your parents raised you, what you believe in, what your competitors are doing. And so we're stuck in this perpetual motion of more, 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 more. At the end of the day, it turns out it's not sustainable. And like I shared with you right before we start recording, even Gary Vee himself these days is no longer preaching hustle. He's preaching. I actually saw him holding up a poster the other day on Instagram, and it said, just because I'm working so hard, it doesn't mean that my employees need to be working so hard. So he's changing his tune. But yes, I am standing up to this philosophy because, to be honest with you, it's not sustainable. It's killing us. There's such thing as death by overwork, and it's not just an American thing. It exists in other countries as well. And we, for some reason, are stuck in this 18th century, 19th century industrial age mentality, which now that most of us, for those of us who are using our brains for work, we cannot do it. It's not sustainable. It's not productive. And it's actually destructive. And so when I got into it, I looked in all the neuroscience and quantum physics and all these things and mindfulness and the science behind a flow and all the studies that show that so many people and companies have now proven to these days that actually you can work less and be more productive, be healthier, be happier. And so I decided to start this on hustle movement because I see a lot of people being stuck in the same status quo, and we need to get unstuck.
So, how long have you been actively an activist in the unhustle movement?
So the company itself started 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember anymore, but I had my aha moment probably 8 years ago, and I started getting into all the research and the data because I had to first do it with my own life before I can say I can take other people and show them how to do it. So the Unhustle company is a company started 2 3 years ago. It was kind of born of my desire to have a higher purpose and be able to help other people connect with theirs and be able to change people's lives in a positive, more positive way. And that's why I pivoted my career from a digital marketer into starting in hustle. I got certified as a human potential coach, which took about a year. I got really deep into mindfulness, into the science behind flow and all that stuff. And so and I started working with people and seeing the success of other people as well, and in doing company trainings and seeing people being able to shift their perspectives, and be able to actually have a lot more focus, be able to control their attention, and be able to actually be calmer and happier at the end of the day.
Oh man, it sounds so wonderful. Happier and calmer at the end of the day.
Well,
You
isn't
know,
that what we want? A little bit more calm and a little bit more inner peace and a little bit more fulfillment at the end of the day, right? Knowing that we're making progress.
I can't tell you how many times when I ask, like usually in the beginning interview when I'm talking to a potential client or a new client, and I say, "What it is that you want?" and they'll kind of sometimes they'll think for a moment and they go, it'd be nice to have some peace. It would be nice to have a little peace. And it's a foreign topic. It's really almost a foreign idea because of the overstimulation that we have as human beings. So, for those of you that spoiler alert, for those of you who are might want to guess how old Milena is, she is 49. She's about to turn 50. She's the same age as I am, basically. I just turned 50. So we're very close in age, which means we were
Happy
brought up.
birthday.
Well, yeah, thank you. Happy almost birthday. When is your
Thank
birthday?
August 10th.
Okay. So this year she turns 50. So that means that, and I was telling Melina Torres as I opened up the podcast interview, is how I was raised. Okay. Just that work ethic. So ultimately, it's always that sort of tried and true sort of go to school, get good grades so that you can go to good university and get a degree and then use that degree to get a good job and then work at that job for X amount of years for your pension or your 401k. It's just this very transactional sort of existence. And so, was your experience similar growing up?
Oh man, how much time do you have? Because, I grew up in a completely different country. Mind you, that same mindset was the same. I grew up in Bulgaria during communism. And when people ask me about my childhood, they expect some horrible answer from me. But in reality, I feel like I had one of the best childhoods ever
Mm.
because our parents were able to take 4 to 6 weeks off in the summertime and take us to the Black Sea. Now, I owe my childhood to my parents because they managed to introduce me to nature, introduce me to sports. They took us skiing every weekend. They took us to the Black Sea every summer. We were camping on the beach under the stars. Of course, we didn't have any phones. So I remember, windsurfing, swimming in the sea, and having bonfires on the beach. And we were happy. We felt free. We felt happy. And then all year long, we were thinking and dreaming about that time when we go to the Black Sea. Now, the whole notion of you got to go to school, make good grades, go to university, that also applied to Bulgaria. It doesn't apply to my case because, as you know, I'm a rebel. So, I was a ski racer, and then at the age of
I like
14,
that.
I had to decide between going to school or sticking with ski racing. And I told my parents, I want to go to school. Now, what 14-year-old decides that they want to go to school instead of skiing?
Right?
It makes no sense, right? But I knew deep in my heart that I'm not going to be a world champion of skiing being in Bulgaria. And then when your knees are busted and you can't ski anymore, what do? You end up being a ski coach. And to be honest with you, I don't like being cold that much. So
Mm.
I said, I'm just going to go to school. So I went to school. And at the end of that high school, when all my peers were studying to get into universities, get the good grades and get into universities, I told my teachers, I don't care to go to any one of the Bulgarian universities because they don't appeal to me. I think it's going to be a waste of time. I'm going to start a business. So I started a windsurfing rental business at the Black Sea in Bulgaria with my parents' existing fleet. So at 17, I started my first business and I was hustling. I was working
Mm.
14, 16-hour days. My friends would come and party and I'll be working. And so I'm no stranger to hustling and what it does to me physically. And then I realized at some point in time that there was a new school that opened up doors in Bulgaria, and that was called the American University in Bulgaria. So when that happened, I knew, I was like, this is the school I want to get into. And I will do anything possible to get into that school. I didn't even speak English. So I locked myself in my room one summer. My parents thought I was going crazy. And I studied English by myself for 14, 16-hour days. And I was able to get into that American university in Bulgaria because I knew it would change my life. I knew it would open a lot of doors. It would give me a lot of green lights in my life. So there's something to be said about working hard to go after what you want. I think the trouble we get ourselves into is when we're constantly pursuing something to find more peace, to find more calm, to find more joy, to find something in a way of an outcome, as opposed to finding that joy and peace and happiness within us, which all the mindfulness um, kind of leads towards that way. It's like finding that spaciousness and freedom within you first instead of constantly chasing something. So in reality, part of what the American dream is, we're pursuing opportunities. Some people's eyes, in my eyes, when I came to America, it was pursuing more money, pursuing more
Mm-hmm,
success,
mm-hmm,
and then
mm-hmm.
and ending up working all the time. And yeah, I might have looked successful on the outside. I had a house in Tahoe, and I had my sports car, and I had a little my husband, my dog, and everything seemed fine on the outside, but on the inside I was really empty. It was like I had no joy. I had told all my friends that all I do is work, so I lost all my friendship, my marriage. To be honest with you, my husband got tired of like me just working all the time because I'll work, I'll come home, cook dinner, we'll converse, and then I'll go back to work, and he'll go back to bed by himself. And so, I mean, I love my mate, yeah, but at the same time, we weren't present with each other. And he was understanding. You're working in company, but like, is this sustainable? Where is this going? At the end of the day, if you're not present with your family, if you don't have the relationships that you want to have in your life, if you're not making time to exercise, of course I started going with health problems. Probably a little bit of like, oh, I'll have a glass of wine. One glass turns to two. You know how that goes. I wouldn't say. I mean, it's addiction, right? Addiction to work, addiction to success, addiction to anything. And I'm sure you have a lot of experience in that area.
Yes.
So, so
Very
that's
much.
not sustainable. That is not sustainable. You end up destroying your health. You end up destroying your happiness, and you end up destroying your productivity and creativity because that's what happened to me at the end. I wasn't productive and I wasn't creative.
So at the time, married, um, and you'd go to work, come home. You have kids?
I don't have kids and I'm still married to the same guy. Yeah.
Okay. So how long you been married?
Oh, 17, 18 years. We've known each other for maybe 7, 8 more.
Okay. So long time.
Long time.
So work, make dinner,
Work,
go
back
back
to
to
work.
work. What were you
Yep.
doing at the time? Is that the digital marketing company?
Yeah. I started my own digital marketing agency. When I came to Lake Tahoe, I told you I've lived here 25 years. First, I worked for a media company. Then I became the marketing director for a ski resort. And I did that for about a decade. And it was fun. They were paying me to, ski and play golf and do a little bit of marketing, all things I love.
Yes.
But then I realized I wanted more freedom. I wanted more freedom than going to a 9 to 5 job, right? So I'm going to start my own business, which I have the entrepreneurial mindset. It's what I love to do. And so I started my own business. Social media was taking off. I had phenomenal clients. I was in the, most of my clients were in the wellness area, health and recreation, and some travel and tourism. But I worked with people like Madonna's Heart Candy Fitness Club in Sydney and Toronto. I was there for the grand opening in Toronto. Steve Nash fitness clubs in Canada. UFC gym, the Ritz. I had some really big clients, and so I was growing a team. I had a team of mixture of freelancers and full time people, mixture of generations in that team, anything from Gen Z to Gen X. Um, and on the outside, again, things were going great.
Mm-hmm.
With more
Mm-hmm.
clients, managing a team.
Yeah.
Managing a team is not my forte. I'm not gonna lie. I'm much better with one-on-one with clients or doing creative work. Being a project manager is not something I thrive on. And I realized that I was working 16, 18 hours. I told you my health was starting to suffer. I had no joy in my life besides working. And that at some point in time, I don't care how many people say, I love what I do. If all you do is work, you're living a very one dimensional life and you're not drawing any energy and inspiration from anything else,
Mm,
you burn out.
mm.
You burn out, and I saw it. Burnout wasn't back then a diagnosis. I just know what it did to me. And you end up resenting the very business that you start, and you have no freedom, which is what I wanted to have to begin with.
So I love rock bottom moments. Okay. It's those rock bottom moments that lead to those aha moments, those burning boat moments, not one more day, not one more hour, not one more minute. So I'd love for you to just, as give us the story, paint that picture for us. You have a very successful business. You've got a team, like you say, on the outside, everything looks good, looks perfect, right? I'm married, I'm happy, I got a business, I'm an entrepreneur, I am a success. I am what you would call a success, and I am a miserable fuck. So, tell us about like when it just all just imploded on you.
So October 31st, 2013, we were at the Hard Candy Fitness opening in Toronto. It's brutally cold outside. I'm there by myself, and it's an intense 3 day, a lot of work. It's Madonna, right? I mean, everybody's like, okay, we're gonna do what we're gonna do.
Did you
So
meet her?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh God, that must have been amazing.
It was, I wasn't working directly with her. I was working with her team. But yeah, she came for the opening. Our eyes locked. The tagline of the gym was "Harder is better," um,
Love it.
and and the marketing campaign was "Addicted to Sweat." And I'm there, addicted to success, addicted to money, addicted to working, and definitely there's no sweat going on because I'm putting work before sacrifice. And during this 3 day period, I had a lot of time to think. Mr. Brainwash, do you know who he is, Mr. Brainwash? He paints a lot of like pop graffiti art, and so he's painting this huge collage on the back of the gym with a bunch of Madonna's posters. And him and I clicked, we connected, and he's got this French accent, and I go back there because it's all his creativity and paint, and we're talking, and I just really like the vibe. So we got to the opening day. I'm sitting there looking at downtown Toronto, the hustle and the bustle. I got a lot of thinking going on. Actually, all of this is going in my book. That's why I can actually visually repeat it back to you, because I'm actually just getting into that chapter of the book. On the way back on the airport, to be honest with you, I pulled a napkin, and on that napkin, in the cocktail napkin on the plane, I drew my live dashboard. So I drew like work, play, love, health, and I gave myself, 0 to 100, kind of like designing your life dashboard, and I gave myself a percent to each one of these. And money was 75%, let's say, works at 120, and everything else is at 25. My health, my love, my joy. So my husband and I decided, I hadn't taken a vacation in 3 years. And then we said, why don't we take 10 days off and go down to Baja California, sir, to this little fishing village where we have a lot of friends. And we'll just go down there. I only get to miss, it's Thanksgiving weekend. I only get to miss like 4 days off of work. And I said, why not? So we go down there. I didn't realize that this was going to turn into a digital detox trip. I probably wouldn't have gone had I known, but there was no internet in town. It was like trickling 1.7 kilobytes. I mean, you can barely check your emails. So, and I'm addicted to technology this day. I'm addicted to social media. So the first 1-2 days, and I got the twitchies, and I don't know what to do with myself. And my husband's like, why don't we learn to kiteboard? That looks like fun. I told you it's a big kiteboarding destination, and it looks easy. It looks really easy from the outside. It looks deceivingly easy.
Uh-huh.
I have never done anything so challenging in my life. I told you, like, I'm into sports. I paddleboard, I ski, I used to ski race. I do anything athletic. I thought I was gonna die. So I'm in the middle of the ocean, and my instructors finally like let me on my own. I have this kite, and it's called body dragging, when you just have the kite, no board. You just have the kite, and the kite basically like plunges you out of the ocean and propels you forward, and you're in this and you do these figurine eights to learn to control the kite. And every once in a while you crash, and then you bring the kite back up. And so I'm doing this, and you go like on a downwind session, and all of a sudden, Omar, like, the world got really quiet around me,
Mm.
and I kind of started to relax. I finally got over the fear, like, I'm not gonna die. I think I'm gonna make it. And I think I'm just gonna have fun with this. So I'm now riding the waves.
Mm.
And it was so cool. It's such a cool experience. And all of a sudden, I got a big smile on my face.
Mm.
I'm riding the waves. I'm actually connecting with nature. I'm starting to realize I'm starting to see the world around me. I'm like in the water, I'm in my body. I'm, I can taste the ocean, I can see the birds, I can see people around me. And I felt so alive and so present and so happy and joyful. And I started thinking, there's more to life than working. And I need more of these moments in my life, personal life and work life. I need more of these moments of being alive, awake, fully present. And what do I need to do to get there? And that was my aha moment that I'm going to change my life.
What a spectacular, spectacular story. I'm actually envisioning that. As I was telling you earlier, I live in Costa Rica. So, like yourself, we're close to water. You're closer to water than I am. If you're living close to Baja, if you're in Baja, then you're closer to water than I am. I'm in Costa Rica, but I'm about an hour and a half from water. But there is this incredible cathartic magic moment that the ocean has
Mm-hmm.
such a healing power.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to surf, but I live in Costa Rica. Everybody knows how to surf. At some point I had to get out there and at least try. So I have this giant, those giant what is it? Those longboards.
Longboards. Uh-huh.
Right. So giant longboard, right? Getting out there, and it's so hard. The thing is awkward. It's big. You're trying to paddle out. If you're not accustomed to paddling out, it's a struggle. And
Mm-hmm.
then I kind of get out there, huffing and puffing. And then it's waiting for the next set to come in. And now I'm sitting on the board and I'm staring at the shoreline, and I'm looking at the beach in a very different way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Different
like,
perspective.
I've got a
Changes your
different,
perspective.
and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden I feel different. I'm looking at this differently, and I get that same sort of like, why can't my life be more like this?
Mm-hmm.
All I
Well, it can.
feel,
It
it
can.
can, it can, right? All I can feel in that moment is peace,
Mm-hmm.
and followed very quickly by that feeling of peace is that sense of joy,
Mm-hmm.
and like, ah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I guarantee you, as you describe your story and as I just described mine, there's people listening to the podcast and going, oh, yes, yes. Oh, and they start to remember the last trip they took and the last vacation that they were on and how revitalizing nature was, only to go right back to the grind and the hustle.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're sitting there and you have this very wonderful aha moment, what was your next step after
Mm.
this?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question because it wasn't an overnight success.
Right.
Clear.
It never is.
Never is. And
Okay,
we shouldn't expect it.
if you're an entrepreneur, there's no such thing as an overnight success.
No. So here's what I did. And these things are extremely easy to do for anybody. We decided we're going to change our life. And so what does that mean, like, right? So my husband and I had some brainstorming sessions, and read some books and said, okay, well, what does our ideal life look like? Where do we see ourselves 3 years from now, 5 years from now? What does that look like for us? What do we like to do? Where, and it's not so much where do we want to live. It was like, what do we like to do? Who do we want to be surrounded with? What do we want to do for work? This kind of stuff. And then we had this on a vision, kind of on a visioning board in a way,
Yep.
but it was very rough. It wasn't anything specific. And then what I did is I hired a image consultant. Her name was her title was an image consultant. Now this sounds extremely extravagant, but I was kind of feeling stuck in my closet. And I think a lot of women can probably resonate with this, because I would open my closet and you'll be full with clothes, and at the same time I'll be like, I have nothing to wear. It's easier for women to understand than for guys. But
Yes.
honestly, I thought she would make me buy clothes, because I was like, I need to eliminate the need or the stress or the decision making that comes to me every morning I open my closet. And so I thought she'd take me shopping. But instead, she worked on identifying my values. She worked on identifying my style. And we ended up removing like 80% of the clothes in my closet. And all of the sudden, what that did is open up this whole movement towards simplifying, minimizing, decluttering everything else in our life. And so we went through the whole house. Again, it didn't take overnight. It took us probably 2 years to go through the whole house, because we work on it on sections. By the time we got to the garage, we got rid of so much stuff that was weighing us down. So we were looking for more space, more time, and more freedom to do what we wanted to do. So of course we kept all the toys. Like, we live into very toy oriented, sports oriented, thing areas. But at the same time, we got rid of all these things that weigh you down, and you end up just moving them, taking care of them, or they occupy your time, they take over your time. So what that did then is we ended up going back to Baja in March of the same year to do more kiteboarding, because I was addicted to that feeling of flow and learning new things that and being in my body that are completely opposite of what I do constantly in front of my computer. So we ended up going back there, and it was on a walk on the beach one morning that we looked at each other and we said, why can't we buy land here and take a month off from where we are in Lake Tahoe from the mountains and go to the beach? Why? And lands was fairly affordable back then. It's not like it cost so much money. So we started looking at land, which then, and we ended up buying an Airstream, and we were now living in an Airstream not for a month but for 4 months. And at that stage I realized how little you really need in order to be happy, because for 4 months we were living in a 27-foot Airstream, and I had very few clothes in my closet. I was walking barefoot on the beach, which brought back my circadian rhythm, so I improved my sleep.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was eating fresh food, so I improved my health. I had minimized my stress. I was still working, I was still freelancing. But basically, I got rid of my office. My team went remote. So all of this simplification that started in my closet started to apply to the rest of my life and to my work as well. So I was all of a sudden making more money, living on the beach in a tiny house. And I was thinking, there's something to this.
There is so much to that. One of my favorite Netflix documentaries is, I think it's called The Minimalists, if I'm not
Yeah, they just
mistaken.
came up with a new one, Less is Now. Yeah.
I haven't seen that second one, but the first one had such a dramatic impact. My wife and I were at one point going through, financial struggles, just like anybody else, especially when I was launching my coaching practice. When I first was launching my coaching practice, I go from having a job with, a paycheck, right? And all the security and the golden handcuffs, right? And to taking that risk on leaving something that was literally killing me. It was killing me because I was under so much stress. My adrenal glands were
Hmm.
just shot. My cortisol levels were, off. I mean, everything was off, right?
Yep. Lived it, know exactly what you're talking
You know
about. Yep.
exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so there's that moment where it's like, so I either risk the stress of figuring out what my next move is, or I risk the stress of keep doing what I'm doing. And I'm pretty sure the other one's going to save my life.
Mm.
And so, making that shift and making that change into that entrepreneurial space, right? It's it's
Scary.
stressful. It's scary and it's stressful, you
Hmm.
know, but it saved my life, right? And so in that process, because it was so um unsettling, right? There was so much, the business, money wasn't coming in, you know what I mean? It was like getting it off the ground and launching it. So it's like, so what do we do? Right? And so, like, what kind of things can we do to connect with what the universe is trying to show us? And one of the things was like, okay, maybe we just need to make more room for money, right? So we just
Hmm.
need to, and so we did that same thing. Like, we went through the entire house and just started decluttering whatever we didn't wear or whatever we didn't use, right? I ended up filling like my truck
Hmm.
just up to the ceiling with stuff, right? And I had this, because we're in Costa Rica, you can't afford not to have a maid because it's
Hmm.
just that affordable. So
Hmm.
we're like, okay, so all this stuff, I'm either going to chuck it or you can have it. And she's like,
Hmm.
I'll take it all. Right. So it's almost like there's this beautiful sort of like
Hmm.
passing of the guard and just like the shift in energy. But I got to tell you, as soon as you were mentioning this, I remember how the shift in energy just started to happen. Like, things just started to magically appear.
Hmm.
Okay. Was that your experience with the decluttering?
Oh, absolutely. But you know what? What's funny is that it's not a once and said and do it and forget it kind of thing, because we still end up accumulating a lot of stuff. I don't know how it happens, but it's funny because we just watched the Less Is Now movie, and my husband, and I think they have this 30-day challenge when they go, day one, you just remove one thing. Day two, two things. Day three, three things. Day four, four things. And so all of a sudden, my husband's doing the same thing over and over again. And we're pretty down to, we're not, let's put it this way, we're not minimalist, but we also live a fairly simple life. Like it's there's nothing that I like. I buy a lot of books. There's nothing probably that if we really want, we won't get. But we at the same time, there is a question between wanting and needing. So I'll give you an example. I just bought, I'm like on this mission to really, I did a whole bunch of training into biohacking with the Human Potential Institute, and there's a few practices from there that I've adopted in my life. But one of the biggest thing right now, I think for a lot of people listening to, is sleep. Everybody's got
Yes.
sleep issues, right?
Yes.
So I said, okay, well, I gotta figure out this sleep thing, because I don't think my sleep's very good. So what do I do? Being in the biohacking, I go and purchase an Aura ring. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, so an Aura ring is it's a wearable technology, which so you wear it on your ring and it measures your sleep, and then there's an app on your phone that tells you how much time you've slept, you spend in deep sleep. It's
Is
you
it
wear
on
it on your ring.
you wear it on your
Yeah,
finger?
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay. All
You
right.
wear it on your finger. So it measures, it's got a bunch of electromagnetic sensors in it. And basically it measures how, supposedly, how well you sleep. And so in a spur of the moment, I said, I didn't think about it for too long. I said, I'm just going to buy it. Well, it's a $300 ring. It's a pretty expensive ring. So I get the ring, but I actually don't get the ring. They send you this sizing kit. So they send you this sizing kit to see which finger you want to wear it on and where it feels comfortable. And of course, my husband notices it. So what's that? I said, oh, that's my Aura ring. And he, of course, he's he's like, and what does that do? I said, well, that is supposed to help me improve my sleep. And he goes, and how does it do that? Right. And so we have this conversation about, well, he makes me question it. And I go and start researching it on one side. And I'm thinking, okay, so yeah, really, if you're just laying quietly in bed, but you're not moving, the ring will think you're sleeping. Right. So is it really accurate? Now, it's considered one of the most accurate devices, wearable technologies as far as your sleep goes. So I was like, okay, well, I explained to him it's got to do with my health. My health's very important, number one. So I'm trying to improve my sleep. Let's give it a try. Well, I wore this, the fake ring for about 5 days. And I was like, no, that's just not me. It's just not me. I know I don't use an alarm to get up at night. Before I used to use my sleep cycle on my app on my phone, and I knew that some mornings the app would tell me, oh, you didn't get a good sleep, but I would feel fine. So you get this fake notion of what's really going on. And I'm like, I'm pretty in tune with my body. Do I really need if we're living in this more present moment, do I really need the wearable technology? So I ended up returning it and they refunded me the money. And yeah, I don't have an Aura ring. But I can tell you that for a lot of people who are struggling with sleep, there are a lot of things we can do without any technology. And so one of the things that I do, I make sure to get a little exercise. I stop drinking so that I make sure alcohol doesn't affect my sleep. And I disconnect from all technology at 8 o'clock in the evening. And quite honestly, my sleep's been quite good since I started these three things. And they're simple, right?
Very
But
simple.
for some reason we think that technology is the solution to everything, and sometimes it isn't. But my point is, think before you buy something, do you really want it or do you really need it? And give it, like, because they gave me a chance, right? 7 days to really think about it while I had this fake ring. And I was like, no, I don't really need it.
No, you don't. And you don't need a lot of things, right? And
You don't.
I'm not a minimalist either in the essence of what how they depict being a minimalist. However, the mindfulness that that it is created is, I think about it every time I'm going to purchase something.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
even if I overindulge, I'm still thinking about this. You don't really need this.
Well, it's good to have a list. It's good to have the I want list and I need list. And I actually have these too. And, I have certain things on my I need list that, you end up getting. But, put it on a list or in a journal or something for 30 days. And if you still need it or want it, or if you still want it, get it. Right. But we spend too much money and then energy on maintaining these things. And just think about, I would have been constantly addicted now to my phone, which I start my mornings without a phone. So the Aura ring would have brought me back to my phone, and that's not what I want to do.
I That's what happened to me when I got the Apple Watch.
Exactly.
So I had gotten to a place where I was very mindful of how addicted I am to the phone, how connected I am to the phone. And I was really working my way towards, making some semblance of progress on creating some boundaries. And then I get this Apple Watch. I had no idea how it worked. I got it. As a matter of fact, my wife got it for me for Christmas because my Polar Watch, it busted, right? So, and it was old, it was outdated. So she's like, oh, I know exactly what to get you. So I'm thinking it's just going to be like a regular, heart rate monitor type thing. And this thing is basically talking to me, right? Every 5 minutes, right? Like I
No
don't even,
thanks.
I don't even wear it when
Yeah.
I'm on calls because it's just making noises uncontrollably, right? Which I don't know how to
Oh,
stop.
they'll drive me crazy. Yeah, they'll drive me crazy. I mean, talk about destroying your attention. Yeah, that would drive me insane.
Pulls you out of flow, pulls you out of flow. So here's what I really, there's a few things, right? Number one is because I was going to ask you, okay, so what's the basic building blocks of how to create this move towards this unhustle lifestyle? First of all, I'd like to know how to get started, but more importantly, how has nature played a role in your life, in your well-being, and your success?
These are two great questions. I created the Unhustle Framework based on what I research are the fundamentals for somebody to get into that. So the 7 blocks are, the very first thing is unlearning, like unlearning the fact that hard work necessarily leads to success. Because if that was the case, everybody working 80-hour week would be successful, and that's not the case. And
Amen.
we know that even people like Gary Vee is now changing his tune.
Mm-hmm.
The next fundamental block is unplug and taking some time to take yourself away from all the technology, all the
Mm-hmm.
noise. Whether you do it for 10 days, one day, half a day, just the mornings, whatever you can, um, get a little bit more present with yourself. The next one is unthinking, and we can go into depth on that one, but I don't think we'll have time. But that's basically, how do you rewire your brain of getting out of the story in your head to creating a more of a present and future approach, which probably, like partly a part of that is visualizing your future and getting into that state. That's like the quantum physics, the Joe Dispenza kind of stuff in that module, Eckhart Tolle. Then you have, how do you unbusy yourself? Sorry, how do you uncomplicate things? How do you simplify, which is what you and I just talked about?
Mm-hmm.
How do you declutter, minimize? So that's the uncomplicate everything, including your business, because a lot of people, especially people getting into an entrepreneurial um, type situation, they try to do too much at the same time, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
how you get overwhelmed and busy and
Overwhelmed.
stressed out
Yes.
completely. So doing, niching down, getting your message clear, identifying your target audience, in addition to decluttering your closet, all of that. How do you unbusy yourself? How do you maintain that attention? How do you get out of your inbox? How do you get out of meetings? How do you find 3 4 blocks of time during your day to focus on the things that matter and do less but better, so that you can move your business forward, and so that at the end of the day you can actually check off all the boxes at the end and say, I feel good, now it's time to switch on my life and go have a life. And 2 more, unwinding. Unwinding, so that's your mind, body, digital well-being. How do you take care of yourself? Spending time in nature is in that category. I obviously live in a lot of a mountain area at the moment, but I try to make it a point every morning to go out and connect with nature. Every
Mm-hmm.
afternoon I go out and connect with nature. I've done a lot of forest medicine time in the mountains here in Tahoe. That's how the whole name and hustle, the whole movement and hustle was born, was outside in nature hiking. So I have a dog that at 5 o'clock starts barking at me, and I have to take her out. She's my
Yeah.
alarm. If I'm still working at 5 o'clock, I try to work kind of between really 9, 10, and 4. It's kind of like my work day, really. So I have a lot of time to go out and explore and be curious and spend time alone with my thoughts, and not with my phone. I think a lot of people go out in nature and then they're still connected on a podcast, or listening to an audiobook. I think it's really important to use all of your senses when you're outside in nature, so that you can get fully immersed in that experience. It's really healing, and it's really good for your creativity, sleep, and productivity, really. And the last one in the Unhustle framework is how to unlock your human potential. Now, there's a lot of talk about that, but that's basically your how you connect with higher purpose, so you can serve for the better good of the humanity, which is what you did, switching from corporate to starting your business, and how to find that flow and how to really work with optimal performance.
So the one thing that I really like is this idea of forest medicine. When you say forest medicine, what exactly does that mean?
So that's a practice invented in Japan, and they invented it because their cities were so busy and so overpopulated. They saw that people are really stressed out, and they had all these beautiful mountains. So they started to do this research. I forget the name of the doctor who started doing it. There's a couple of really good books on it, but basically he discovered that trees um, have certain oils that's why it smells really nice in certain trees. If you're in certain trees, like in Tahoe, we have a lot of pine trees, so they emit certain amount of oils, and that's how they talk with each other. There's all this communication with them. So basically he took people out of the city and took them into the mountains, and they do a very, very slow mindful walk where we explore all of your senses, where you touch and you smell and you feel and taste. And he realized that even like a 2 hour a month session in the mountains is so beneficial in the way of reducing stress, improving sleep, increasing creativity. And so that's kind of the whole premise behind forest medicine, or forest bathing they call it in Japan. So it's taking time away from technology and away from your busy day to just connect with nature, to really, really connect with nature.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So, Lena, thank you so much for joining us. If our listeners want to reach out to you and get in touch with you or follow you, what's the best way for them to find you or follow you?
Super simple, unhustle.com, and it's unhustle on all the social media channels.
Beautiful. So, what is one final piece of parting wisdom that you would like to share with our listeners?
Final words of wisdom. It's a good question, Omar.
I know you have them.
uh, you know, it's 70% of us spend our days being stressed. And that's why all of these things we're talking about are appearing. So if you can find a little bit more time to connect with yourself and be more present, that's your way out of being stressed.
Beautiful, beautiful. Milena, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to see you in Costa Rica one day.
I love it. All right, folks, we've now reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Pura vida.